Hey, Regatta, it's Coach Victoria coming at you with some warm-ups that are really good for the rower. So, if you think about it, rowing is predominantly from our legs, and a lot of force is produced from our hips, and we hinge a lot. So, I recommend a couple of these exercises, these movements, these warm-ups prior to rowing. So first, I really like good mornings, okay? So you're gonna hinge at the hips, slight bend in the knees, and push your hips back. Nice flat back. You'll notice a stretch and a pull in the back of your legs, your hamstrings, and maybe even into your glutes, okay? So imagine if you had weights and it was a deadlift position. That's all it is. You're stretching out your hamstrings and glutes, prepping them for movement. To one-up this movement, you can even externally rotate your thighs and knees as you're pushing your hips back. Do you notice the stretch? Nice, okay? So another one, I'd like to do a squat stretch. Very similar, a little different. So same positioning with your feet. You'll hinge, you'll reach for your toes, and then you're gonna drop your hips, come into a squat. Elbows on the inside of your thighs to open up your hips, and then floss back and forth these two movements, okay? Keeping your heels on the ground. If your ankles aren't as mobile, I recommend widening your stance so your heels are able to touch the ground. That way, you're really finding your glutes and you're not just coming up onto your toes. You would feel it a little bit more in your knees, okay? Nice. Another one, if your hips are tight, pick a hip warm up, right? So one of the ones that I like, we call this a 90-90 because 2 90-degree angles in your legs. So even this position, I already feel it in my hip flexor, but keeping your heels firmly to the ground, you can windshield wiper back and forth. And using your palms behind you to guide you, okay? And if you don't feel this one as much, you can even come up and press your hips forward. You feel a big stretch in your hip flexor. Nice. Doing a couple of these kind of on your own. And if this one doesn't serve you for a hip, for your hip warm-up, another one is hip circles standing. It's a little bit easier to move through, right? So finding your knee, find a 90-degree angle and open out to the side. Yeah, and just alternate. Cool, so those are some hip ones. Another one is your runner's lunge position. So palms on the inside of your foot. And from here, option to drop down onto your knee, or you can stay up onto your toes. The idea is that hip flexor is able to stretch. And if you're really mobile, you're able to come down onto your forearms, okay? I like to move back and forth as I'm warming up, make it a little bit more dynamic. So think of a plank position and moving side to side and pressing your hip forward and down into the ground. Nice. And then one more I like to give is a down dog. The down dog positioning, think plank position to start, wrist stacked underneath your shoulder blade. That provides some core stability to start, and then press your your chest into your thighs, okay? Releasing your heels to the ground. You'll also feel the hamstring stretch here. Make it active in your shoulders. Don't allow yourself to slouch. Be active, press away from the ground, chest towards your thighs. Now, added bonus if you want to add a little bit more core stability, opposite hand, opposite foot, and then reach forward, stabilizing your core. Try not to drop your hip. And then the other side, okay? So again, down dog is really good for your hamstrings, but also that positioning primes you for a nice tight core, which we use core on the rower, as well as just a strong positioning in that plank position, right? So those are a couple of the movements that you can take your time to do before you start a rowing workout. Cool? All right, hopefully that was helpful to you, and I'll see you soon in one of the classes.